Welcome back, friends and family. I am Codiferrous, and today I am ranking all Kingdom Hearts 3 main story bosses from easiest to hardest. Kingdom Hearts 3 is the next mainline game in the series, following the large number of spin-offs that span between this game and Kingdom Hearts 2. And because of the extreme convolution of Kingdom Hearts 3's story that results from the ludicrous writing of the spin-offs, I am not going to do a story summary as I have on games past. Instead, I'm going to give a brief game review and how it compares to the previous mainline titles. Speaking of which, unlike Kingdom Hearts 2, which was an improvement from its predecessor in every aspect, KH3 has its fair share of hits and misses. So let's start with the bad. Firstly is the challenge level. The original release of Kingdom Hearts 3 was almost boringly easy. There was no critical mode and no secret bosses. Later they would add both in an update, but this would still leave much to be desired. A personal critique of mine is the lack of Final Fantasy characters. Leon, Cloud, and their respective crews are completely absent, leaving Sora and friends in a Disney dystopia. And oh lordy, nothing lives up to dystopian Disney as much as the introduction of attractions. The biggest draw to Kingdom Hearts is the combat system. How about we inundate that with blatant Disney World ride advertisements that not only give your character a prolonged space of iframes, but also wash out encounters in their entirety with absurd amounts of damage. Yes, you do not have to utilize the attractions, but for someone like me with OCD, it's like having an itch that I need to scratch seeing the commands sit there ticking down the doomsday clock. My final critique is the worlds. There are only 7 main Disney worlds, not counting the 100 Acre Woods, and let me tell you, they are not all created equal. Toy Story was almost amazing, but the presence of the Gigas enemies caused the encounters to be incredibly drawn out and tedious. But the narrative with Sora, Woody, and Buzz was so good that it was worth it. Meanwhile, the Caribbean and Olympus are masterpieces with fantastic replayability. They are massive worlds and they really make you feel like you are in the movies, while seamlessly integrating Sora as part of the story. Then we have the opposite in worlds such as Arendelle and Tangled, where we are literally just watching the movie, with Sora and friends having zero impact on the story and just riding along in the back seat. Frozen was especially disgusting, and I have so much to say about it that it would warrant a separate video entirely, but I digress. If I were to sum all of this up, it really boils down to how apparent it is that Disney called most of the shots in the making of this game. They tried to drain the core of what made Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 so awesome and memorable. We worked alongside the Final Fantasy characters and Disney icons to defeat a larger evil, and now it feels like Disney is just trying to get us off of the game and onto Disney Plus while booking a ticket to their theme parks. One final kick to add while the game is down is that Donald and Goofy are more annoying than ever, as they never stop talking about ingredients. Alright, now for the good stuff. Right away, the game is beautiful, with movements being incredibly smooth. How Sora runs, attacks, and maneuvers through the environments, casts magic, everything. They took battle mechanics from previous games and slapped them all here with shot locks, grand magic, weapon transformations, anti-Sora form, and team attacks. A small note to add, speaking of teams, is that you are able to have all of your party members together in each respective world without having to substitute someone out. The free-flying gummy ship exploration is much cooler and interesting, with the combat being intuitive and fun. The enemy AI is smartly made, with the enemy designs and attacks all being unique and bringing about their own challenge. And while the base game was lacking challenge, as I previously stated, the updates and subsequent DLC gave us Critical Mode, the Dark Inferno, and the Limit Cut bosses to deliver that torturous challenge that I and my fellow pain enjoyers have been looking for. But that's enough about that. Let's get to the key points. Me being me, I gotta start off by saying that I very seldomly granted experience, so if it appears that I am underleveled for certain encounters, I likely was. In addition to this, the footage shown is recorded from not only my very first playthrough of the game, but it was a blind playthrough on the highest difficulty, Critical Mode. As is per usual, the following list is comprised wholly of my own personal opinion and is not meant to be taken as unshakable fact. Because some bosses are fought multiple times, this list will be comprised of unique boss battles, meaning that each boss will only be represented one time and in their most difficult iteration, so you won't be seeing any repeat fights. To really ramp up the difficulty, I did not use the Keyblade Forge to upgrade my weapons, any meals to boost my stats, or any Koopa coins to have that free resurrection, because quite frankly, I had forgotten that these things exist. It wasn't until I beat the main story that I rediscovered them. I guess that's what you get for skipping through tutorials. Oops. Per usual, I do not look up, watch videos of, or follow any guides, so please understand that all strategies and combat approaches that you see are based off of my own discovery and design. And as a final note, it's time for me to pass around the offering hat and demand tribute to the channel in requesting that you subscribe. These videos take a copious amount of time to create, and your support means the world to a growing boy like me. Alright, walk with me as we analyze each boss's attacks, defensive measures, abilities, and BS factors to determine who is the mightiest of them all. Enough delay, let's jump into things. This is exactly what we like to see. The first entry on a boss ranking should always start with the beginning boss. Making his appearance yet again is Darkseid. He's undergone an aesthetic makeover, but mechanically it's that same familiar face that you've come to love. Make like a Catholic nun and smack his hands with a lengthy instrument to inflict damage. And that's really it. At the beginning of the game, we don't have any advanced maneuvers, so it's just X button simulator until you see victory. And yes, I do mean X button because I played through Kingdom Hearts 3 on the PlayStation, so please keep that in mind as we move onward. Rock Titan has improved since he debuted in the first game, but that doesn't mean much as he's still one of the biggest pushovers in the boss lineup. Just as you did before, attack each of his legs while dodging his slow motion stomps to gain access to the faces, where you will scale up his rail cragginess and deliver some blunt force trauma to the collective domes. Try to stay airborne as he will do a face slap to bat you away. And that's about it. Eventually you will get the magical, totally not an advertisement to buy your ticket to Splash Mountain roller coaster, and that just blows the rest of the fight away. While I hate the Disney attractions, even I can't deny feeling epic riding around dumping explosives on a Titan during a thunderstorm. Be certain to blast his hands as he attempts to slap you and ride that thing till it crashes. The Lich is essentially the Grim Reaper, and with the importance of what it holds to the story as well as its awesome design, I am disheartened to say that as a boss, it's a bit lackluster. You fight it 7 times across each world, and you never are really in any danger of dying. The Lich runs away leaving explosive decoys that Sora always wants to lock onto, and also sends a variety of magic your way. The only spells that will give you issue will be the blizzard spells that freeze you in place, but otherwise, airstep to the boss when possible to deliver punishment, and decimate his 3 health bars 7 times over to show him what happens when a boss gets too redundant. Quite the random boss, the Raging Vulture is encountered at the start of the Caribbean world, and introduces a special gimmick of aerial combat atop a Heartless. Hold down the auto fire and launch missiles while chasing the boss. If you leave the boss alone for too long, it will bombard the Black Pearl, so you need to maintain its attention as best as you can. The best strategy I found was to tail the boss just to the side of its, well, tail. And if you hover here, it will not use its cluster bomb attack that explodes behind it, and you are only at risk of being attacked by the mob Heartless. If you take too much damage, bail out and heal before air stepping back to your mount. At regular intervals, we have the opportunity to board the Vulture. Make your way to the front and attack its face until it begins to rear its head back. Put up your barrier, and as soon as you are able, get back to slapping. Soon you'll be thrown off, and then we can hit the repeat cycle. Codiferrous, yes that's his name, has a pretty fun design and makes for a mediocre challenge. It hits hard by virtue of critical difficulty being the equivalent of having just 2 masks in Hollow Knight where anything kills you in 1 to 2 attacks. But he has a massive hitbox for you to slap with magic and keyblade transformations and long pauses between attacks which you will use to wail on him. After cutting down 5 or so health bars, it will change its area of vulnerability from its face to the volcanic spout on its back. Codiferrous will remain stationary and erupt periodically. Literally just a damage sponge for this phase. Shiving off another 3 bars will relocate the boss, and it will shift to its 3rd and final phase, the Anal Cloud. The boss springs out of the orifice on the tail end of this thing and launches lightning magic while still remaining stationary. It's a bit more dangerous than the volcanic spout phase as lightning magic is more challenging to avoid, but X smashing once again proves to be the most obvious and dependable method to success. This fight was intimidating in its presentation, so I defaulted to the true blue Dark Guard strat of JK rolling about the arena, only to get a giant fist to the face that sent me into the deep matrix. The dark cubes are quite simple. Once they get red, it's angry slap time. When not, it's our turn to attack the core. The Master Hand Slam and Tracing Laser Slam attacks are obvious enough to dodge. The attack to watch out for is the Beyblade Barrage that you should be guarding against with proper timing. Don't bother counterattacking, just wait out the animations. Last but not least, we have this cool imposing Tentacle Blaster attack that reminds me of the Sentinels from the Matrix. You may be able to block these blasts, but I opted for dodge rolling. And that's it. Just focus on the core as it is available and red pill yourself back to reality. Another gimmicky flight battle, the first half has us trailing Dark Baymax and blasting away at him in the same fashion as a classic gummy ship engagement. After taking enough backshots, we get to the actual fight, which involves a lot of running and gunning. Essentially, Autopilot Simulator. Dark Baymax dishes out some serious damage should he land his charging tackle, but if you are tactically retreating, aka running like a like I was, then you shouldn't rock the bed too much. Hit that care spray as often as it comes up because the threat of being 100 to nothing is always present and about where your guard is taken away. Marshmallow is imposing, but it isn't too much to shy from. A shallow move pool, slow movements, and a large hitbox make for a nice punching bag. Fire spells at a distance, the tree slap action command, shot locks, and ranged keyblade forms make quick work of him. The only challenge to this fight is when he Wolverines up and comes at you with his spiky claws. Being on critical mode, the instincts to preserve my soft and nubile body came into play, and I kept my distance while popping off spells. I like to assume that the swipe combo can't be easily blocked, but I never stuck around to find out. Just be patient, don't rush to your death, and victory is all but assured. Fans of the channel already know exactly what I have to say about this fight, and it should really be my campaign slogan at this point. Taking away your ability to utilize an established combat game mechanic, such as blocking or dodging, is the #1 biggest offense in my comprehensive guide to boss bullshit factors. Now that isn't exactly the case here, but this fight does change your combos entirely, which is definitely a new one to add to my list. Water combat is not as horrific in this game as it was in Kingdom Hearts 1, but that doesn't mean much as it's still awful. The finishing combo for water combat has Sora literally remaining stationary, waiting for enemies to slither into his Chamber of Secrets. So, to avoid this abomination of an attack, I mostly utilize short combos interwoven with dodges and magic attacks. The boss has largely telegraphed attacks and plenty of openings, but it doesn't change the fact that any combination of 2 taps will do you in. Just like Marshmallow, patience is your guiding key. The Pirates World, aka the best world in the Kingdom Hearts anthology period, has ship combat as part of its design. This is strange to rank as this is technically 2 separate encounters back to back, but seeing as how Davy Jones is technically included in this battle as he pilots the Dutchman, I decided to lump them together. The first part of this fight sees you boatside as you need to blast the Kraken's tentacles into Calamari while protecting the Black Pearl from Davy Jones. The Dutchman will spawn in different parts of the whirlpool to punch holes in our seafaring friends, prompting us to dispose of it in due time. After downing the Dutchman, it's time to focus on the Kraken and chip away. The Dutchman will reappear, to where you will then blast it away once more. Not much strategy required, just roll a 5 in perception and we'll be fine. Defeating this triggers phase 2 aboard the Dutchman for an actual mano-a-mano face-off with Davy Jones. Jones teleports around and has slow, albeit deadly attacks. Luckily, he doesn't combo frequently enough to one-shot you per se, but nonetheless, it never hurts to avoid damage. Midway through, he will call forth the Kraken to fondle your sphincter, and while not necessary, it is highly recommended to dispense with the tentacles as soon as possible, as they can not only create obstacles to clutter your battlefield, but also slap you around in conjunction with Davy Jones to secure your watery grave. He has a hefty amount of health, but you should have many an opportunity to unload Keyblade transformations and team attacks to make this more manageable. Earth, Wind, and Fire, am I right? Wishful thinkings. Instead we have to settle for the 3 Titans of Olympus, Ice, Wind, and Fire. The first section of this battle pits you against the Ice and Fire Titans, with the phallic prison of Zeus ascenting the skyline. Scale the phallus and then pick your least favorite Titan to slap around. Each Titan has pitifully slow attacks that you can dodge anytime this decade as they sit there and take the face slappings as if they're getting paid to do so. I personally air step to the Titan's mouth holes to avoid having to scale the abysmally made lava peen because the pathing on it can get a little frustrating to deal with. A little something here and a little something there, and we're on to the next phase of this fight against the Wind Titan. This Titan will throw the city of Baghdad at you, necessitating that you guard to repel steel and concrete. Approach his windy spout and knock him around until we get with the Genie Jafar attack that puts us into free fall as it chucks building debris our way. Dodge until you get close enough to serve up a concussion that then puts you amongst the rubble. Air step into the Titan's grill and put the axe to the grindstone. If he's not done at that point, then we repeat the cycle thus. I died twice here because of the ridiculous amounts of damage that sneezing deals to Sora this early in the game is absolutely absurd. And when you combo it with balanced surprise attacks like this, yeah. But I have faith in you, my dear protagonist, and you will likely fare better than I. I didn't include the rock troll enemy on this list because it is battled so many times that it's more of an elite enemy, just like the Toy Story Gigas, than it is an actual boss. And the Chaos Carriage was almost left off of this list for the same reason. However, the first encounter is actually challenging, so it just barely makes the cut. First phase, the Chaos Carriage puts us up against a wheelie tower that the Power Welds hijack to spew projectiles from up high, and getting combo locked is all too easy. As soon as you are able, you need to clear out the tower and then do your best to keep it that way. I shot locked right out the gate and then camped around it to keep the enemies from scaling it. After disposing of the monkeys, then it's time for the boss to reveal itself. The Chaos Carriage only has two primary means of attack, a charge and a stomp. You can block a roll from the charge as it makes its passes, and you want to give some space in avoiding the stomp as it has a damaging aftershock. Each time you clear out the carriage's health bar, it pauses as a segment of it breaks off. As surely as you can count, you need to do this 3 times to see it through to the end. I know. 3 at the same time is intimidating, trust me on that. But this first of several series of simultaneous boss fights is the easiest of the bunch. The theme with each of these endgame encounters is that once you deal enough damage to any one of these angsty challengers, then a cutscene will be triggered that removes them from the arena, and in this case, it will be Ansem. You only need to chip off about 1 bar of health to see him exit the scene. Left with just Riku and Xigbar to deal with, I chose to focus on Xigbar first as ranged foes give me hemorrhoids. No real strategy here, just blow his back out. Air step when he spaces out from you and keep that punishment up. One of his ultimate attacks shapes as a massive hail of projectiles that expands out in a circular pattern. You can simply dodge through it and get right back into eviscerating. I wish I had more of an analysis to bring to you, but as you can see, I just kept smashing, dashing, and air stepping to find immediate success. Xigbar will bid his prompt adieu, and then it's Riku's turn. Riku starts right away by implementing the Chain of Memory's Dark Break attack. Block 5 times in succession and then counter as he goes for the shockwaves. His other attacks are of little consequence, even on critical difficulty. I hate to say it, but reckless X smashing proves to be far more effective in this game than ever before. I apologize for washing over the moveset of these enemies, but they hold back on their full arsenals given the gangbang situation that we find ourselves in. Never to worry, as there will be full breakdowns in the Limit Cut video, hint hint nudge nudge. Xemnas takes the backseat for this encounter and only sits around long enough to give Luxord the juice after you clear out 3 health bars. Luxord pulls a Maximilian Pegasus and seals Mickey instead of a card, challenging Sora to a shadow game in the process. Luxord will conceal himself among the cards, prompting you to locate him and deal a royal flush. Do not bother fighting Larxene or Marluxia as they have invincibility by proxy of Luxord's card mechanics. Only after defeating Luxord will you be able to damage the other bosses. After wrapping things up, I chose to go after Marluxia next. Not for any particular reason other than that he seemed to just stand there and accept his fate. As I said in my previous video, yes, I am saying Marluxia and not Marluxia. He's not an androgynous medieval torturer, right? Larxene is extremely dodgy about things, and this becomes painfully apparent when the two of them synchronize their ultimate techniques. This is visually impressive by all rights and accounts, and I honestly just tanked this to the face and healed when appropriate. Dispatching Amar makes analyzing Larxene's ultimate far easier as we can time her flashy dashes and block just as she actually goes in. You can just about X-button simulate your way through this for the most part as the bosses stumble heavily from your onslaught. Having access to endgame equipment, abilities, and spells makes these ending bosses far more manageable than the early game ones, so you don't have to play overly cautious. It also helps that your allies for the organization fights are strong for a change. Anyways, X-Smashing provides a decent amount of maneuverability, and you will inadvertently end up dodging your opponent's attacks. Clocking Marluxia delivers us to an out-of-character farewell, giving our much-needed alone time with Larxene. Minus the voyeurism that is our mouse upon the house. Larxene goes haywire, dashing in every which direction before unleashing an attack. Just like Mar, however, we can power through more often than we should be allowed to. It also helps that Larxene's individual attacks lack serious bite. She is vulnerable just after attacking, so take full advantage of this to get the most in. Do so successfully and you'll be treated to the single greatest voice line in gaming history to ever be delivered to a fallen adversary.
You're gonna be recompleted.
Although this is just a two-sum bout on the final gauntlet, it's for good reason as the battle style of these two perfectly complement one another. Terra Xehanort has generous super armor with an in-your-face style of combat, while Vanitas holds a fetish for magical ranged attacks. Terra Xehanort was the first to go for me as he was the more threatening of the two. He digs his super armor and he adores his dash attacks. There's no bowing out this time, this is a fight to the death from the start. It isn't entirely dependable, but my allies distracted Vanitas, so I essentially got to have a 1v1 with Terranort. You'll be able to combo him for way longer than you should, as is customary, until he gets to around 2 or more remaining life bars, thereby activating his ultimate. The stand will lash out while generating a black hole to pull us in as beams of energy slide about. Swap Vanitas away if he becomes too much of an annoyance, and otherwise use your dodge rolls for the energy beams. I rolled at the final moment to avoid the finishing attack of the ultimate and then punished Terranort immediately to eliminate him. With Vanitas left, he starts off by riding the wave, in a fashion reminiscent of the Demon Tide. More on that in a moment. When the storm of Keyblades turns blue, it means that you're about to be charged. Keep rolling like a limp biscuit until he runs out of keys, and then it's business as usual. His behavior is the same as when you battled him as Aqua, with his most obvious opening being right after he does a Blizzard Enhanced Helm split. Given that this time around it is a 3v1 in your favor and you are playing as Sora instead of Aqua, we all know how this ends.
The rest of me.
The Demon Tide is very basic, but it suffers from the horrible aspect of it being from the early game, meaning that healing is extremely limited and any contact from this thing one-shots. The boss has only 2 ways of attacking, and as I just mentioned in the previous entry, one of the attacks is indicated by a blue aura coupled with increased activity and speed. The other attack is repeated arc dives that also needs to be avoided. When the boss attacks, you 100% need to play safe and defensively. The battleground of Twilight Town provides plenty of obstacles and cover that can either help you in avoiding direct contact or hinder your movement to make for an easy target. The arc dives spring out from the ground and have decent tracking, so don't get too comfortable in hiding away. Guerrilla Warfare is going to be your best bet here. Don't be intimidated by the Demon Tide's massive health bar, as you only need to shave off 2.5 bars to conclude this fight. The Demon Tide is fought once again at the end of the game, but it poses 0 threat at that point, so we are only going to list the first, more challenging fight in his debut appearance at Twilight Town. This boss is not too difficult on a repeat playthrough of the game, but going in blindly on critical mode where every attack is a one-shot is something else. The charging attack from the Lump of Horror serves up a generous 80% of your max health, meaning that you absolutely need to be topped off at all times if you want to survive. It will charge when you see it blowing some steam, where it will do so 3 times, finishing with a fireball. Its second attack will be a goopy spawning of grabby hands that flail around, rendering you unable to damage the boss until they are dispensed. Outside of his 2 slow-moving magic attacks, that's it for Phase 1. Phase 2 gives us Goose Soup as the Lump takes on its monstrous true form, spawning grabby gloves galore and trying to blast us back. Remain persistent, but don't tunnel vision so hard that you don't give yourself a space to land when blasted back. The hands can overwhelm you if you're negligent, and then it's back to Form 1. I found the Kingdom of Chronostaff to be useful here due to its ranged nature, but whatever you are most comfortable with will be best. The Demon Tower is fought twice in the main story, and both times you fight as Riku. Riku isn't bad so much as the enemy deals an exorbitant amount of damage with your healing options being limited. Sound like a familiar challenge? The battle of interest here is going to be the second Demon Tower bout that features Anti-Aqua as a supporting douche. The tower is very erratic and has a basic melee swipe that comes in bursts of 3, ascented by a blue aura. When it takes enough damage, Aqua will make her appearance and combo the jingle out of your keys. I didn't develop a nice method for avoiding this, I kinda just went off of thoughts and prayers to be honest. And that's it. It's quite basic, you just need to worry about surviving Aqua's assault and you'll be right as rain. Skull the Ice Wolf is an awesome boss. Great design, imposing ultimate attack, and balanced challenge. The design for this is absolutely spot on, and fighting it makes you feel like a badass. Skull has attacks of all flavors for any situation. It usually opens with a basic swiping attack and some fireballs. The boss banks on you fighting cautiously, as most of its attacks are mid-ranged and it retreats after each offensive, thereby not giving you a chance to attack. Press the offense as much as reasonable, but don't attempt to power through. The super armor and ferocity of Skull's attacks will bowl you over like a stack of Daddy's dirty magazines. For Skull's ultimate, it will whip up an impressive Tengai Shinsei with complementary goo drippage to set the scene. You'll need to eliminate as many swimmers as possible in the given time to trigger the Sub-Zero Impact command. The swimmers drop orbs to restore your focus upon their expiration, so use your shot lock to make quick work of them. And that goes for the boss itself. Skull takes bountiful loads of damage from shot lock attacks, so much so that you might accidentally just end the fight. Early stage boss with a generous amount of health. You already know what to expect, so it's no surprise that this is in the top 10. The Grim Guardianess telegraphs all of its attacks with long exaggerated animations, but that doesn't take away from how effective and deadly it can be. The Guardianess will try to slam you with its face or charge you with its head. Pretty complicated, I know. In addition to this, it will spew ravens from its gob to create a threat from a distance, and this makes up the bulk of its basic attacks. Things get more complicated when it begins to implement its magic. The most theatrical attack will be signaled by a flash of light that teleports the boss atop the tower. A cage will be called on your location 3 times as a slew of bombs begins to appear above you. To get through this, you need to jump through the openings of the cage, which are always solved by jumping forward, backward, and then forward again. Then you need to make your way to the top of the tower to attack the boss in its face to the point of dethroning it. As the fight goes on, you will encounter some additional plant magic that can cause Sora and friends to sneeze, but the worst will be the spawning of these creeper vines. These create a tether to you that limits your movement, necessitating that you destroy them, because if you don't do so fast enough, you're gonna get the puppet show treatment. This boss is a damage sponge for sure, so I had no qualms about using no less than 600 double arrow keyblade transformations to see myself through. I really believe I got lucky in my fight against Aqua because I was able to ace her. She doesn't have much for health, but is quite dodgy with big damage burst potential. She spends a good amount of the time you have together walking around menacingly like she's looking for a lost contact lens, only to teleport and blast your face. You can dodge just about all of her attacks, and she's open quite often to be on the receiving end of your keyblade. It's not to say that going full offense won't work, but you do want to fight her with at least 20% of your brain power to be cognizant of a counterattack. A big saving grace here is her limited health pool, so one way or another this battle should be over quite fast. I don't like this fight at all because it was so completely unnecessary. Aqua trying to be an independent strong woman as a plot device when Sora and friends could have simply gangbanged Vanitas here to throttle Xehanort's plan made me audibly groan for the second time upon me reviewing this footage. I mean, what is the actual point of locking out Sora and nearly getting yourself killed? Whatever. Playing as guest Keyblade wielders adds so much unneeded challenge to a blind critical mode playthrough, as not only do I need to learn different battle mechanics on the fly, but they are always limited to a single restoration item. Never mind the fact that I also need to learn about the boss's behavior at the same time. But even with all of that, the worst handicap personally is that Cure is mapped to a different shortcut than what I normally use. Meaning that there are times where I was trying really hard to cure when I ended up doing something different entirely. Vanitas has a limited pool of attacks in this first encounter, but it's more than enough to obliterate Aqua. His favorite is that Firaga geyser that comes in waves of 3. I spent most of the battle running away until Vanitas presented an opening. This takes the form of him whiffing an attack or using his Blizzard Helm Split. Your win con is to get the Spellweaver Keyblade transformation, which enables you to combo the boss for literally all of his health, leaving with a final shot lock to seal the deal. This is much easier said than done as Vanitas has solid HP, plentiful magic attacks, and decent melee, making him one of the most well-rounded bosses in the game.
You're nobody's master anymore.
Keyblade sponges that one shot, if that doesn't sum up the entirety of the difficulty hill in Kingdom Hearts 3 critical mode. And this is an incredibly common occurrence in the early game, as is represented yet again by this entry. Angelic Amber, the marionette, is a possessed doll that quite frankly creeps me the balls out. The boss only really has 2 means of attack, which is comprised of tackle and slam in a classic normal type Pokemon moveset fashion. That doesn't sound too bad except they one-shot you. The real difficulty gets cranked up because there are numerous amounts of adds present in this battle that can also one-shot you. It's like being in the middle of a minefield without any gear. One step at the wrong time in the wrong direction can spell certain doom. The initial footage for this boss corrupted, so I can't show you my death compilation, but I beat the boss again in just 2 attempts by dumb luck. My dread at restarting such a drawn-out fight was so strong that I played quite cowardly with hit-and-run tactics, I admit. But I got through each boss in this game without gross abuse of invincibility frames, and that's where I stake the pride of my victory. It's the exact same struggle as Angelic Amber. Every attack is a one-shot or nigh one-shot. The difference between King of Toys and Amber is that the King has ranged attacks. This tackle, one shot. The laser blast, one shot. Granted, at the time I didn't know you could guard while in the air, so I was really counting on my dodge roll timing, which had about a 50% success rate. Anyways, the King of Toys is only vulnerable on his face, so climb aboard and smack away until he begins launching rockets. The rockets move sluggishly and are avoided by dodge spamming. At regular intervals, the boss will wheel about the perimeter to loose ever more rockets. The boss's ultimate technique triggers an anti-gravity field, making it a bit more challenging to scale up to his face, but scale you must. There's an air step block that will appear high above the boss that allows you to do an aerial dive attack that ends the ultimate and puts the ship out of commission temporarily. The boss isn't too difficult or complicated in this design, so the learning curve is small, but the threat of an instant game over at any moment propels King of Toys to the top echelon. In this battle, you're pitted against Saïx and Xion. Focus Saïx first. When you hit the trigger, as is customary among these ending multi-boss bouts, Xion will make her exodus as an opponent and join as an ally. But in the meantime, prepare yourself as Xion copies Saïx's moveset and rage slamming the ground at your feet. Glide on aerial attacks will prove to be your friend here in dodging most of the crap, but you have to find the perfect balance in your playstyle. Being too passive or too aggressive will lead to certain doom, as being passive lets them sandbag you, and being too aggressive is never a good choice in the face of the ridiculous amounts of super armor and stun attacks that make this fight excruciating. Saïx was my favorite boss in the previous game, but in this one, while incredibly cool in his appearance and abilities, straight up infuriates me. The saving grace here is that Roxas and Xion are incredibly powerful allies and can randomly send him skybound for a combo. Saïx is vulnerable just after he does a slam attack, but you need to be quite quick about it as his super armor will come back in no time flat. I got fortunate in that Roxas seemed to always punish him when he was open, so I recommend keeping Roxas alive if you were struggling like I was.
Still haven't achieved our goal.
Let me sum up the Kingdom Hearts story for any of you who may be confused. Here, you can see me fight Xehanort, Xehanort's Nobody, and Xehanort's Heartless while Xehanort watches from a rock. As you defeat each adversary, the remaining ones become stronger and utilize more of their move pool. With that said, I got rid of young Xehanort first, as his time shenanigans are annoying as all hell to deal with when you couple them with either of his boyfriend's combined assault. Occasionally, the old man will intervene and summon waves of Keyblades to swarm you as his other iterations pop out to attack. You need to simply survive, and then it's back to the cheek beating. Your allies are essentially useless as they are constantly getting their backs blown out. And some Seeker of Darkness has this gravity pull attack that I never found a good way of escaping, so because of this attack, as well as this light cage rush being a constant annoyance, I chose to eliminate him next with overwhelming firepower. This left Xemnas as the sole challenger, but he stumbled from just about every attack, so I comboed him into infinity. He's threatening all the same, and I came too far to get knocked out, so I took the ending very slow and watched his every move. He will do a few teleport strikes before retreating a distance, which gives you a solid window of opportunity to air step and retaliate. He takes severe damage from your attacks thankfully, and when Mickey and Riku actually get the chance to be alive for a fight, they really can do some work. The final boss fight makes its way to the top 3. Master Xehanort has every boss mechanic that you would expect from a final boss: aggressive ranged and close-up attacks, teleportation, super armor, and a BS ultimate. At the start of the fight, you're going to want to block his first few attacks before doing a retaliating slash, and when he retreats, air step to continue the beatdown of a senior citizen. Halfway through, Xehanort will summon Kingdom Hearts and lift you into the sky on a floating platform. He adds a few new tricks to the bag, starting off with these homing fireballs, but he is still vulnerable as he was in the first phase. The real nuance to this bout comes when he reaches critical health. A cutscene plays out where he steals your light, reverting you to Anti-Sora. You are unable to heal yourself during this phase and need to avoid Xehanort's attacks. It is only by inflicting enough damage to him that you will be able to restore yourself. He loops through the same few patterns, so it's easy to learn this phase after some trial and error. Watch the introductory light beams and save your dodge for the right opportunities. He will then rush at you for some melee attacks before teleporting back to center stage and doing a light rush and another melee combo. After this, you will have the chance to go in. You will have to do this a minimum of 2 times to proceed onward to the final leg of his ultimate. Back to your old self, Xehanort will use his 6 Paths Limbo clones to go forth and swarm you. While you block the Keyblade attacks, lasers will begin channeling and firing. They cannot be blocked. This means that you're going to need to alternate between blocking and dodge rolling to optimize your success rate. Or, hear me out, you can tank it all to the face and get a clutch Donald heal. Regardless of your method, after making it through this attack, the fight is essentially done. Whoever came up with this fight is a cruel, cruel man. There's an introductory fight to Armored Xehanort where you face off against a group of Keyblade cultists, and while this is a wash, X-smashing cleans this up in no time. But proceeding to the actual fight is something else entirely. This fight takes place across land, sea, and sky, with each of them bringing about their own challenge. The first phase is on solid ground, although I would understand your confusion seeing as how armored Xehanort never really touches the ground. He flies at you from distances that should be too far to connect a slash, with mixes of teleportation and armor frames. Guard and counterattack until he does his Hammer of Dawn phase. Xehanort will fire these scatter blasts in waves of 3 before Beyblading out to your face. There is a conveniently placed building you can hide behind to avoid his range attacks, which leaves only his physical attacks to pay mind to. He'll get grumpy and remove gravity from the arena, sending you skybound. Remember that you can block and dodge midair. Also remember that you can air step to close the gap. The next phase takes us under the sea for some lovely water combat. Because of how terrible the underwater combo finisher is, I did partial combos and dodge cancel them to stay nimble. His move pool is very limited here and he's quite vulnerable, so stay offensive and on the move. The final phase is in the sky. And the switch is flipped to maximum overdrive. Xehanort is incredibly aggressive and his Hammer of Dawn beams now have a gravity pull with them which leads to certain death. He moves ridiculously fast and swings relentlessly. Dodge and block timing are everything, but that only gets you so far as he has an unblockable lightning attack, Hammer of Dawn beams, and a grapple. It's going to take a fair bit of flailing about to get through, and I do apologize for not having a more concrete guide. Honorable mention: the Pyramid Colossus. There are numerous gummy ship bosses scattered across the galaxies, but given the nature of them being optional and niche as far as combat is concerned for gummy ships, I still thought it was worth to at least mention the final, mandatory gummy ship boss encountered on your way to the Keyblade Graveyard. The Pyramid Colossus is impressive in his presentation, but a giant pushover all the same. For the first phase, blast his pitch tent away while barrel rolling to unlock the next section of the boss, the Underbridges. To get through the Underbridges, you need to destroy each of the protruding tube thingies, and that's it. Honorable mention: Ghost Ship. It's strange to count ship combat as part of this boss ranking, hence why Luxord's ship battle didn't appear on this list, but the Ghost Ship is so insane that I have to talk about it. Encountered southwest of the Sandbar Isle is perhaps the actual hardest boss of the game, the Ghost Ship from the Pirates of the Caribbean world. I had a maxed out Leviathan, and I even tried it several times with the Black Pearl, and this thing dusted me in 10 seconds or less. The only advice I have is to farm smaller ships nearby to build up all 3 of your ship abilities and then go hog wild. But even going in with a full arsenal is not enough. The sheer damage output of this renders all attempts obsolete and absolutely requires luck to beat. Never to mention that this ship has insane defenses along with the unique power of teleporting about the arena. Oh, and it has 2 equally powerful supporting vessels to go with. This thing is atrocious. Rant over, let's get to the actual number 1 boss fight in Kingdom Hearts 3. While technically not a story boss, I couldn't help but to include the biggest baddie of all and the only secret boss in the game unless you were counting that brutal ghost ship from Pirates of the Caribbean. Enter the Dark Inferno. He is a bit underwhelming in his introduction when compared to the other super bosses in the series. Hell, even the Ghost Ship had a better intro. He has 3 phases that he goes through, signaled by his ever-increasing Saiyan aura. The first phase has 4 basic attacks. At the start, he will always do his dashing sideways slash that you can block and immediately punish him for. You can get about a combo and a half before he puts up his counter stance. Stop attacking when you see this if you value your family jewels. Dark Inferno has a combo attack that he ends with an unblockable tackle. You know what to do here. Now for the more interesting attacks, starting with the Wispies. Dr. Di will emulate the Curse Fire attack from the invisible Heartless enemies in Kingdom Hearts 1, which is easily avoided by gliding. When he reappears, you can air step to him and deliver a pounding, which leads to the final attack, this large AoE Blade Sweep. This attack spells certain death should you be hit, as it chops your health bar while also leaving you stunned. Getting him low will increase the ferocity of his attacks, extending the combo length of both melee attacks, so be prepared to implement additional blocks as needed. But it's business as usual until things get red. Dark Inferno now mixes his Wispies in with his other attacks and has unblockable finishers on just about everything. He also follows combos up with additional combos to keep you on your toes. I have the ultimate weapon, but I didn't use it for this fight as it makes an already easy super boss even easier. But I did use the Oblivion Keyblade because I worked hard to unlock that, dammit. If you needed a reference, I was level 60 when I did this, but if you're really struggling, you could just as easily power level to 99 and then absolutely obliterate him. And that brings us to the end of our video. The Harmless Henchman Award for the least threatening boss goes to Darkseid. It's the first boss, and rightfully so, he's easiest to defeat. Granted that I aced numerous bosses in this game, I feel that most players ace Darkseid regardless of difficulty and skill level. The Lethal Adversary Award for the deadliest boss goes to the Dark Inferno with a total of 12 deaths. Dark Inferno, while difficult in comparison to all the other bosses on this list, was not that infuriating. His attacks made sense and weren't too cheap shoddy. Minus of course the stun. That attack alone accounted for just about all of my deaths to him. I don't mind losing to a boss loss if it's due to my inability to master the mechanics. I do mind, however, if they one-shot you with cheap tactics. That's what we call manufactured difficulty. Thank you all so much for watching. If you don't agree with some of these picks, let me know in the comments. But until then, take care, stay safe, stay happy, and I'll see you soon for the next one. Bye-bye.
You're gonna be recompleted.